And who am I? That's not a secret I'll never tell. You know you love me. XOXO. Gossip Girl.
What's up? We got Gossip Girl, Season 1, Episode 18, the season finale, Much I Do About Nothing. This episode starts off with Serena walking around the city, trying to repeatedly call Dan. In her last voicemail, she announces that she's coming over and catches a cat. In a hotel, Lily and Rufus are wake up after sleeping together, and when they're awakened by Rufus's phone ringing. After he hangs up, he tells Lily that Lincoln Hawk was offered a touring gig. She realizes that it's her wedding day, but congratulates Rufus on the offer. Bart then calls Lily and asks her to meet him before the wedding. At the Waldorf, Blair wakes up next to Chuck, and Chuck demands to know why isn't he still sleeping on the floor. He mentions that they actually have come up with a good idea to get revenge on Georgina, and Chuck leaves to quickly write his best man speech for the wedding. In Central Park, Nate and Howard are running together. Nate reveals that the lawyer is expecting the trial to go great, and they should celebrate the wedding. Nate asks when Anne is returning, but Howard says that she won't make it back from the Hamptons in time, which disappoints Nate, who wants them to meet Vanessa. Howard's phone rings and Nate leaves, saying that he'll meet him at home. Once he's gone, Howard tells the person on the other end of the phone not to draw attention at the wedding by being too late or early, and that he'll slip out right after the ceremony. Nate, you think you just got your dad back, but your dad might be doing a bit sus things. At the lot, Serena finds Dan inside. At first she's relieved, but she is shocked to emerge when Georgina emerges from his room. Georgina says that from what Dan said, she assumed their relationship was over, and she excused herself, claiming it wasn't what she had planned. Dan defends, saying it's not Sarah's fault, but Serena yells to him that her name is Georgina, and she yelled at Georgina, saying that this is what Georgina probably would have wanted. Dan tries to calm Serena down from yelling at this girl. After she's gone, Serena finally tells Dan the truth about Pete and why she left and everything, and about Georgina and about everything that she kept from him. Dan says it's okay. He's glad he told her, but she should have told him sooner, because she asks if they can fix the relationship, and when he doesn't give her an answer, she says she'll see him at the wedding and to hug before she leaves. Once Serena's left, Dan calls Blair. Meanwhile, Lily goes to meet the Bart in an empty building. He explains that it's the first building he ever bought, and he likes to come back to it to feel how it felt the first time he saw it. But he's going to sell it because he's not the young man who bought it. He's not the young man anymore who bought it, and needs to let go and move on with his life. He then asks her what he should do with it, and she answers that he should let it go. Bart agrees, and then asks if she can do the same for him, alluding to saying goodbye to Rufus. She says okay, she'll never see Rufus again, and at the Waldorf, Dan, under Blair's supervision, calls Georgina and lies that he wants to see her after he got into a trip with Serena. She agrees to meet him in the park by the pond. In the park, Georgina tells Dan that she doesn't want to know what to make of the previous night. Dan reveals Serena told him. He finally exposes to Georgina that Serena told him everything, and he believes Serena. She asks how he felt about last night, and he doesn't know. Then Blair, the best person, shows up, followed by Georgina, who angrily explains that they're planning to send Georgina away to boot camp for troubled girls. And Blair gives one of the best lines, saying, "Yeah, there can only be one mean girl in New York, and that's her." Love that line. That's just a great line from Blair. So yeah, Georgina's now gone, and later at the law, Dan asks Rufus why did he come the night before, and he says it was a special night. Dan says is it going to a wedding, but that Serena said something that affirmed Lily stayed away because she asked her to. Rufus is taken aback by this, being like, okay, maybe that's the reason why Lily stayed away. And he's taken aback by the news and leaves the lot. Meanwhile, Jane comes out of the room with Vanessa because Jenny wasn't in the last episode, so yeah. To show the dress she designed for her to wear to the wedding. At the wedding, Blair and Chuck say the plan to Georgina worked out. He asks her to stay with Dan, but she refuses, saying Georgina was the last thing they had in common, and they're through now. So outside, and leaving best boy Chuck heartbroken that his girl just rejected him in front of everyone. Outside the venue, Nate and Howard arrive and see Chuck. Howard feels the tension between the two and advises them that their friendship isn't worth losing over Blair. He says a girl, but we know over Blair. Meanwhile, Blair finds Serena in the dressing room, and Serena admits that she feels like her mother's heart isn't in the way. Blair asks if one day they'll be preparing for their fourth wedding, and Serena then notes that Dan isn't there. Serena says he's coming, but she needs to work on earning his forgiveness. Back outside the venue, Howard meets with a mysterious man who asks for payment. Howard just quickly hands him the money and goes back inside. However, unbeknownst to Howard, Chuck witnessed the whole thing and tips off the security guard to keep an eye on Howard. Inside the venue, Rufus finds Lily and helps her put her bracelet on. He asks if she really wants to go through his wedding. She says no in the slightest, and says if she says no in the slightest, he'll cancel the wedding. She says she didn't say that, and he assures her that they can work out the relationship. Lily is skeptical and saying that it's been 20 years and this is not the hard moment to hash out the details. Rufus explains that he didn't want to get married again right away, but Lily replies that she does. She asks about Dan and Serena, and Rufus reasons that their relationship isn't 20 years in the making. However, Dan and Vanessa arrive slightly delayed to the wedding, but the ceremony hasn't started yet. They run into Serena, and Dan admits to her he didn't sleep with Georgina, and he may as well have. Before responding, an usher appears and whisks Serena away to start the ceremony. Inside, Lily and Rufus affirm their love for each other and let each other go. The wedding officially begins, and Bart and Lily officially marry. During the wedding reception, Dan noticed Serena picking at her food, and he asks to go somewhere to talk. He excuses herself across the room. Security informs Chuck about how leaving, and feeling tells Nate, who, of course, doesn't want to believe him. He tries again and explains about the deal we saw earlier, and Nate realizes that, Chuck is being serious about this, and goes outside to see what's going on. Outside, Nate catches Howard's car leaving and demands to know what he's doing. Howard gets out of the car and says that he left him a note at home, apologizing for what he's about to do. He shows a fake passport and reveals that he's heading to Dominica to escape the impending trial, which will clearly indict him as he's guilty. Nate asks about Anne and Howard, and Howard says she's paying for his private plane out of the country. Nate then punches Howard in the face and says, "That's for his mom. That's for Anne." Back inside, Blair sits next to Vanessa and says she's sorry for knowing that she's dating Nate. Dating Archibald's hard. Eric approaches and asks if they know where Chuck is. Says it's time for a speech. Vanessa excuses herself to look for him and find outside with Nate. She asks Chuck. He thanks Chuck for telling him about his dad. Then apologizes for everything and saying that he's never heard him say that he loves anyone. So he's surprised to hear him say it to Blair. Heard him say it to Blair. Chuck asks if he's headed back in, and Nate says he doesn't want to go back. Vanessa tells Chuck that they're looking for him, so he goes back. So he goes back inside. Once he does, Nate tells Vanessa it's a long story, and she smiles that she has time. Elsewhere, Dan finds Serena sitting alone, and he sits next to her. She cheerfully says that she figured he hooked up with Georgina, but she was willing to forgive him because she doesn't want the relationship to end. However, Dan breaks up with her anyway, reasoning that too much has happened for things to go back to the way they were. Back inside, Dan gives a moving best man speech that he improvises after seeing Blair in the audience. Afterwards, they dance, and he asks her to take it slow. They kiss and leave together. Meanwhile, a wedding coordinator tells Dan and Serena to dance together. They do until only one of them is left dancing. But in the shots, you can see that that Nate and Vanessa are dancing together, even though they didn't go inside. Even though Nate said he didn't want to go back inside. That is a very weird edit or very weird error that they had. That you can just see a shot of Vanessa and Nate dancing together, despite the fact that they didn't go back inside. That is very weird, and I don't know why the writers kept that in, had that scene filmed. A week later, Jenny calls Rufus, who's on tour with Lincoln Hawk. She excitedly explains that her letter from Parsons came from her potential internship, and she opens up with Rufus still in line. After reading it, she realizes that she'll be interning for Blair's mom, Eleanor, at the Waldorf. Serena hangs out with Blair, where she packs for a trip to Tuscany with Chuck. Blair admits that while Chuck brings out the naughty side of her, she seems to bring out the best in him. He asks Serena if she's talked to Dan, and so that they haven't spoken since the wedding, but it's probably for the best. At the palace, Chuck is finishing packing while talking to Nate on the phone. He explains that he's bringing Blair to Tuscany because his dad's jet was headed out there, and she was going to France anyway, before asking Nate about Vanessa. Meanwhile, at the gallery, Dan asks Vanessa what happened to Nate, and he wonders if it had something to do with them coming from separate worlds. She asks about Serena, but instead of answering, Dan admits that he's not ready to talk about it yet, and they change the subject. Elsewhere on the street, Serena runs into Nate, and they laugh together while sharing their summer plans to go to the Hamptons and decide to hang out. On the tarmac, Blair arrives to find Bass employees waiting for them on the helicopter. Waiting with the helicopter too. She explains that she's a guest of Chuck, and the Bass employee remarks that if he's anything like Bart, he'll probably be scary. They both share they like the jump seat on the helicopter and wait together. Back at the palace, Chuck sees Bart and says he wanted to say goodbye before he left. He wishes him a good trip and says he's proud of the man he's becoming, especially because he has now a real girlfriend and learned to mature and be a changed man. And of course, because it's Chuck, him afraid for commitment, abandons Blair and decides to sleep with Lily and Bart's apartment renovator. Because literally, yeah, good job, Bart. You literally messed up Blair and Chuck's relationship. Good job, bro. He was willing to go on with you until you made this line that made Chuck realize that, yeah, maybe he's not ready for a relationship just yet. And goes back to his sleeping, cheating ways. Thanks a lot, Bart. You're a terrible father, but you literally ruined a good relationship between two people who actually liked each other. Good job. Chuck was gonna leave with Blair, but then Bart says this thing to him about becoming a mature man. So out of being afraid of changing, Chuck goes back to his terrible ways. Good Good job, Bart. You're a terrible dad, and you even give terrible advice that makes Chuck change his mind. Yeah, literally, Chuck throws away the flowers he brought. Yeah, literally. Chuck takes this, and Lily enters and brings along Amelia, a young blonde who is helping with apartment renovation. Bart and Lily leave the room before Lily and Amelia follow. Chuck is like, yeah, he's not ready for commitment, and throws away the flowers he was going to give to Blair. And while asking if they can, and goes talk to Amelia, asks if they discover what she has planned for his room. Back at Tarmac, Blair receives a text from Chuck, lying that his dad's flight is getting late, so she should go on without him. She agrees to flight with a business associate for the jump seat, and they leave together, ending the season. Wow, was this a good episode? Yes. Did it show Bart being a terrible dad by the end by making Chuck rethink his decision? Yes. Will this cause problems with Blair and Chuck's relationship in next season? Of course. Dan and Serena broke up. Georgina got sent to boot camp, but I don't think this is the last time we'll see Georgina. And I don't think this is the last time we'll see Georgina. Jenny's going to go work for Blair's mom, and Blair and Chuck were going to go off to Tuscany together until Bart had to get into Chuck's head, and Chuck realized that, yeah, maybe he is not ready for a matured, loving relationship. So he decided that, yeah, no, I'm just going to go back to sleeping with women like I used to do instead, and leaving Blair behind. Poor Blair. Hopefully maybe she and Chuck can actually figure out what they have next season. But for this season, it ends with Blair going on the flight without Chuck. Because Bart Bass is a terrible dad. If he hadn't have given Chuck that advice, Chuck would have had a good relationship with Blair. But because we need drama for season 2, we had to have Bart give Chuck that advice of how he likes the man Chuck's becoming. And Chuck didn't like that because he was scared that he's growing up too fast. So he decided to sleep with Amelia, who we randomly never see again after this. I thought that this episode would have introduced her as a new character, but no. This is her one and only appearance. I guess it's to show that Chuck's habits don't die even if he's with Blair. I guess that's what it's supposed to show, that even if Chuck's in a committed relationship and dating Blair, he can't help himself from sleeping with other women and cheating on Blair. I don't know what that means, but yeah, this is the end of season 1. Hopefully, wonder what season 2 will bring with a 25 episode with 25 episodes in the episode count. I wonder what season 2 will bring, and yeah, this was season 1. I really liked it. Don't know what my favorite episode of the season was. I kind of have to choose. I think my favorite episode of the season is Desperately Seeking Serena, because I just love Georgina as a villain, and I love Georgina. She's a cool villain antagonist for the show. And she's the first villain antagonist. And I don't have a least favorite episode because, yeah, I don't have a least favorite episode. I don't have a least favorite episode for this season, but I think the episode... which episode wasn't that good? I like Bethany's Blair, and Thin Line's Chuck and Nate was good. I don't know. I don't know what... I can't choose. I don't have a terrible episode. Like with the Thunderwinds, you can choose a terrible episode because that show is a Nickelodeon show, so there are some good episodes. But with Gossip Girl, with it being on the CW, you cannot choose what bad episode is because it has no bad episode. But yeah, that's it for this video, and I'll see you next time when we see what our characters will be like in season 2. Hopefully you join me, and hopefully you join me on my season 2 journey, because yeah, 25 episodes. That is crazy. But anyway, that's it for this video, and I'll see you next time for Gossip Girl. You know you love me. You know you love me. XOXO, Gossip Girl. See you next time for Gossip Girl Season 2.